Olá pessoal, bem-vindos a mais um episódio do podcast da Nerd English. E hoje a gente vai estar montando um episódio um pouco diferente que vai se repetir algumas vezes nas próximas semanas. É um novo formato onde eu vou ter uma conversa descontraída com um grande amigo, Humberto, que já mora fora há alguns anos. E nós vamos conversar totalmente em inglês. E a meta é trazer para vocês tanto a sensação de um diálogo cotidiano, quanto algumas expressões e palavras interessantes para que vocês possam aprender cada vez mais, alright? Eu espero que vocês curtam, falem nos comentários o que vocês acharam. Vamos para o episódio. My friend, how you doing?
Hey man, pretty good. Yourself?
Yes, I'm fine. I want to have this very serious conversation today because today is Harry Potter's birthday.
Yes, it is. 31st of July, Harry Potter's birthday.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is something that I want to make clear for everybody who's listening, that when you talk about birthdays, you cannot use have, right? Many students that I've had for many years, they always say something like, I have 10 years old, or I have 20 years old. And we can't do that, right?
No, you are 10 years old, or you have turned 10 years of age.
Right. That's an interesting word, right? Turned. Maybe people think about turn left or turn right, but we are talking about churning into a new age, into a new cycle.
It's almost like a condition. You are at that point in your life, you have turned 10 years, or on Harry Potter's case, actually, not sure how old he would have been now.
He was born in 1980. So, can you do the math?
Way to put me on the spot, mate. Thank you very much for that.
That's a nice expression. That's a really nice expression. Let me talk about it to the people who are listening. You said that I've put you on the spot. So when we do that, it's because we are making the life of the other person harder, right? We're not making them, we're making them leave their comfort zone, right?
And that's something we do very often.
And we expect them to do something or to answer something. I think that the most classical scenario about putting another person on the spot is like when your boss, he arrives at your desk and he says something like, "What you doing?" Right? Well,
on my case, you'll probably be browsing the internet if my boss asks me that.
That's awesome. Well, we are in 2021. So Harry Potter, he would be
41.
41, man. He would be older than us.
He will be older than both of us, correct?
That's
now,
so
here's
scary.
A bit of trivia for you. J.K. Rowling chose the 31st of July for Harry's birthday because it's also her birthday.
Jesus, that's true?
Yes, it's J.K. Rowling's birthday.
I would totally do that if I were a writer. I would put random facts from my life in all my characters.
And she does. There's a few villains that she named after people that she didn't like in her childhood.
So she could kill them.
Probably, yeah.
That's awesome. I imagine if George R.R. Martin did it, because everybody in his books dies they always die a horrendous death. But going back to Harry Potter, I have something that I want to talk to you about. I was very surprised recently. I was translating an article about urinary tract infections. And there was this point that they were explaining the main urinary tract infections, and they said that some microbes, they act like commensals. And I was blown away because I was immediately thinking about Harry Potter, and then I opened Google and I typed Harry Potter commensals, and there was nothing. And then I found out
No.
they are death eaters.
Yes. Yes.
So
I think
for those who are listening, they eat death. Please explain.
Yeah, well, in the Brazilian translation of the books are published in Brazil. I'm not sure Portugal, but I know for sure in Brazil it was translated as Comensais da Morte.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas the original is Death Eaters. Now, I think she's borrowing a little bit here from the Old English. I don't think she's actually going for eaters in as a verb, no, to eat something.
Right.
But it is a strange name.
It's like devouring, right? Like devour or consume.
Yeah, possibly. I think we need a little bit of research on that one. I'm not sure why she went with that feeders, but after a while, it became a bit of like a title more than two words thrown together.
Right. And do you like it in Portuguese? Comensais da Morte. Do you like it?
Very few translations that I enjoy on that book.
Yeah. That's awesome. This is interesting.
From Dumbledore's name, where they changed one letter from Albus to Alvus.
Oh.
I'm not sure if all editions did that, but the one I had, the one that I got to look at one point.
Which is Harry Potter's son, right? His name has the same name.
He named one of his kids after Dumbledore, but
that's a great expression right there. For those listening, Beto said that he named his kid after. So everybody knows after, like depois, right? But in this sense, it's because we are naming the kid in honor of another person. So some people, they name their kids after Michael Jackson. So the kid will be Michael Jackson.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly what Harry did. He named one of his kids after Dumbledore. But on the Portuguese translation, at least the one published in Brazil, they changed Dumbledore's actual name to Alvus. So they changed the B to a V. And they also did a few little translations on names. For example, Harry's father, his name is James Potter.
Okay.
I don't know if your listeners know this, but the technical translation for James is actually Tiago.
Yeah, that's true. So, I know that from the Bible.
Yeah, exactly. So the Apostle James will be the Apostle Tiago. So they published as Tiago Potter, which I understand why they did it. It would be easier for that target public at that age group. But the story is set in England, in the UK. So it felt disconnected to me.
That's so interesting. And I have some more questions regarding the books and the movies. How do you feel about J.K. Rowling and the whole setting of the story? It feels kind of how can I explain this? They have Latin. They have a lot of Latin. Like some of the names have Latin. Like for example, you have Draco. That's dragon, and his son is Scorpio, which is scorpion. How do you feel about that? Do you think that is nice, or it should all be in English?
I think it's very cool actually, because it ties back to the overarching structure of our books. Okay, so if you follow the story, the wizarding world goes back centuries. Okay, and you see glimpses of that history as you read the books. So medieval England, and then you get a little bit more information about other European countries that also have wizarding communities. So it makes sense that for a group of people that don't have technology, but have a very long and strong heritage, that a lot of that will linger. So what you're seeing is actually that behavior just persisting
That's so
And also,
interesting.
the Latin specifically is very pertinent to the story because the spells are done. A lot of the spells are done in Latin because they're old. Now they were invented centuries ago. Okay. Hogwarts itself, if memory serves me right, is at least 400 years old at the time of the books. So a lot of
Nice.
those wizards at that point, they were creating spells and they were using Latin, or they were mixing Latin with English, and that's the old English, the classic English. So it makes sense that those kids would carry on with that sort of behavior because it's part of their day-to-day life.
That's awesome. And there are some interesting things about what you said. One of them is you use the word spell, right? That we see that as feitiço. And we have spell casting, which would be feitiçaria, right? And spell is also soletrar. It's very common for English learners to say spell your name or how do you spell that? So what do you think is the connection between spelling, like saying the letters of a word, and the spell? Maybe it's because they need to speak it to make it happen.
It's associated with the power of words.
Right.
There's many fictional works. There's this concept that the power that you imbue it, or that you pronounce it carries that power outwards. Okay, so they have the power within, but they need to channel that out. At some point in the story, they start to learn how to cast spells without words, but they explain on the magic system that you need to internalize that. So the word itself is still part of the process, but they're doing it inside their heads.
All right, so that's awesome.
It's almost like a channel to bring that power out.
That's awesome. And the last question that I have is something that people always ask. They say, he's a wizard. Why don't they call him a witch? Is there anything on the books or on what you read that we have this difference? How would you make a difference between a wizard and a witch?
I don't think the book really goes into that aspect.
There is also a warlock, right?
Yes, there are several titles. There are warlocks, there are wizards, there are. Oh God, I'm drawing a blank here. But one thing to consider is that Hogwarts is Hogwarts school of witchcraft and wizardry.
Oh, witchcraft and wizardry. That's awesome.
So I think it's just the way that she implemented those words to differentiate, because this is a school. Schools, you have boys, you have girls, just to make it clear. And we also have to remember that the first, second, and somewhat the third book are very driven to the younger population, the younger public.
Right.
Okay, so it would make sense to me that she would use that as an artifact to make it clear for her audience that that's what she's doing. It's a school, it's boys and girls. We can go.
So you have wizards and witches, right?
Yes.
You have wizard for boys and witches for girls.
Correct.
Basically, yes. Right? That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for discussing some of the Harry Potter world. And just to wrap up, could you tell me one or two reasons why you're such a big fan?
I think the number one reason for me is because it was my gateway into fantasy. I started reading those books when I was very young, and it was before I started reading The Wheel of Time or started reading Tolkien. But it gave me the discipline to go through those large books and learn to enjoy it. So it was my gateway into this wider world of fantasy novels.
And that's a so interesting word. We have gateway. If we think about it, in Portuguese we have porta de entrada, right? And we could adapt that to gateway, because gate is portão and way is caminho. So you have to pass through the gate to go the rest of the way. So
Yep.
gateway is a very nice word. We can use that for lots of things. Like some people's gateway into English is our video games or comic books, for example. And what about your second reason that you're gonna say?
And I think the second reason, the world that she was able to create was, for me, very comforting. It was a place that I could go and hide a little bit and enjoy myself. Her world building skills are extraordinary. I really enjoy the characters. I really enjoy her magic system. I really enjoy the society that she created and the history that she created. So for me, those are very interesting books. I still read them to this day, even though it's been what, more than 20 years since I first read the first one, and they are absolutely fantastic.
That's
And they
awesome.
grow with you. They grow with you. You can observe a very clear progression from the first to the seventh book. That the books mature with the audience.
That's
You start
awesome.
off with the Philosopher's Stone, a very kid-friendly book that beats around the bush in topics like death and pain. But then once you get to the third, people are dying left, right, and center. And by the time you get to the last one, you see Harry really dealing with that concept of, will I have to take a life? Will I have to do violence? What is my role in this war? What is it that I have to do in order to protect the people that I love?
You
So
go from a
he
story that
grows.
is totally kid friendly, and then you have some very interesting moral debates. This
Correct.
is so interesting. Well, thank you so much for discussing Harry Potter on Harry Potter's birthday. This is so awesome. And see you next time. See you guys.
Thank you very much for having me. Cheers, mate.